Instead of starting a mass public uprising, as you might expect, Shays' rebellion encouraged nationalists to push for reform of the United States governmental structure. It was a debate on interstate use of the Potomac River in 1785 that prompted George Washington to invite representatives from Maryland and Virginia to his home at Mount Vernon. James Madison persuaded Virginia and Maryland representatives to hold a larger meeting, including mid-Atlantic states, when on September 5th, 1786, Alexander Hamilton from New York presented a report on international commerce. Hamilton persuaded fellow nationalists, or those in favor of rendering the Constitution of the federal government adequate to the exigencies of the Union, to meet at a convention in February in Philadelphia. 12 out of the 13 states accepted the invitation. Rhode Island held out. 55 delegates showed up to deliberate in Philadelphia between the middle of May and the middle of September 1787, although daily attendance was usually only about 35 men. Who wasn't represented? Women, artisans, small farmers, free African Americans, slaves, and Native Americans. Who else wasn't present? Thomas Jefferson was acting as minister to France. John Adams was acting as U.S. diplomat in England, and Patrick Henry was not a nationalist and didn't want to strengthen the national government at the expense of the states' rights. Ben Franklin was one of the regular speakers, as was Washington, Hamilton, Robert Morris, and James Madison. James Madison, notably, not only rose hundreds of times to speak, but took copious notes, as you're all doing right now, right? He produced the only continuous record of the secret Philadelphia Convention for posterity. And it was secret. It was a hot, hot summer in Philadelphia. But despite that fact, the windows and doors of the Philadelphia Convention Hall, they were kept closed in the Convention Hall because they would be accused of treason. These men in their early 30s and 40s, they were mostly wealthy merchants and attorneys. Many had served in the Confederation Congress, and they knew firsthand its weaknesses. While most delegates came to repair the weaknesses in the articles, rather than formulate a new document, James Madison came with a plan, which Edmund Randolph presented on May 29, 1787. The Virginia plan specified a bicameral legislature and made representation in both houses of Congress proportional to each state's population. Voters would elect the lower house, and delegates from the lower would choose delegates to the upper house from nominations submitted by the state legislatures. The houses would jointly name the country's president and judges. So what about this plan aroused the most anger? The proportional representation proposal favored Virginia, the most populous state. In response, on June 15th, William Paterson of New Jersey offered the New Jersey Plan. And that plan suggested a unicameral legislature in which each state had one vote, just as under the Articles of Confederation. It went further than the Virginia Plan because it defined congressional laws and treaties as the supreme law of the land. William Paterson, by suggesting the New Jersey Plan, highlighted the biggest problem of the convention, representation. Virginia, Massachusetts, New York, Pennsylvania, they would all have a majority in both houses under the Virginia Plan. Under the New Jersey Plan, however, the smallest 7 states, comprising only 25% of the U.S. population, would control all of Congress. To break this impasse, the delegates appointed a grand committee dedicated to compromise. This panel adopted the Robert Sherman, or the Connecticut delegation's proposal, an equal vote for each state in the upper house, which would become the Senate, of course, and there are 2 senators representing each state in the Union, and proportional representation in the lower house. The House of Representatives is based on population and most closely approximates popular majoritarian democracy. This proposal, the Connecticut Compromise, or the Great Compromise, was accepted on July 17, 1787. And in addition to solving the problem of representation, one of the greatest issues facing the framers of the convention, it also outlined the principles of federalism, which is discussed in Module 5.1. It's the sharing of powers between the states and the central government. The Great Compromise also highlighted sectional differences between North and South around the issue of slavery. The South would not count all slaves, but every 5 would count as 3 in the 3/5 compromise. Representation in the lower house will be determined by not only each state's free population, but also 3/5 of all other persons, which really referred to slaves. This 3/5 compromise applied not just to representation in the lower house, the House of Representatives, but to taxes also. The North wanted to limit the South's political power, but did not push for the abolition of slavery. The Southern whites gained political power, but the people they were counting didn't have a voice at all. Southerners were also able to guarantee the future of the slave trade for another 20 years. This is because in Article 1, Section 9, the international slave trade was not outlawed until 1808, allowing that much more time for the trade to flourish and the number of enslaved persons, particularly in the South, to grow. So the Southern slave owners were very powerful. Many who came to the Constitutional Convention were slave owners themselves. In the next 50 years or so, many Southern slave owners would become president. Be sure to read your textbook and continue watching this video and answer all of your questions.